Outsource UK, and this is the peerless panel Career Routes and Diversity in Cybersecurity. I have Ron Werner, Carolyn Yates, and Ken Bechtel all on the call with me today. They're going to talk to you about different routes into cybersecurity and give advice to anybody who wants to enter this industry. So I'm going to ask you all individually to introduce yourselves. Ron, would you like to go first?
Certainly, Rosie, and thank you for having me on here. Hi, everyone. I'm Ron Werner. I'm a professor of cybersecurity studies at Bellevue University. It's in the middle of the United States in Nebraska. Been teaching here since 2010, basically any course in cybersecurity. I'm also the president of my own small consulting company called RWX Security Solutions. And how I got into security is kind of a traditional approach where I got a degree in computer science from Michigan State University, and then a master's degree in information systems from Syracuse University. So it just kind of naturally led me with a computer science degree. I have also a military background to get right into cybersecurity, which I've been doing for about 20 years.
Perfect. So I imagine you've seen quite a lot of changes in that time.
Yes, but the more things change, the more they stay the same. So technology has slightly changed, but the problems are very similar.
Okay. And Carolyn, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Carolyn Yates. I'm from the UK. I'm relatively new to cybersecurity, having moved into cybersecurity just a couple of years ago. I currently work for PwC in our cybersecurity business unit.
And Ken, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, Ken Bechtel. Thank you for having me. One of the founders of the Antivirus Information Exchange Network, Savian, and founder of Team Antivirus. Been doing cybersecurity since 1984, kind of ironic, specializing in viruses and malware since 1988. Got my start by being thrown at it in the Army, and it kind of followed me through my career, and I leveraged that when I exited the Army. Happy to say that a lot of my research and background has contributed to people getting or having a degree to be gotten. It's always fun arguing one of my papers with a PhD candidate or graduate. So with over 30 years, really looking forward to sharing what we've learned in the past.
Again, a long time in the industry. I imagine you've seen some real changes. Do you agree with Ron's comment that yes, there's changes, but it's the same thing that happens time and again?
It's a little bit of a irony. I'm actually giving a B-side speech keynote start of October in Harrisburg, PA. All my career is a circle. The more things change, the more they stay the same. So yeah, we're coming back to some of the old threats with just new names.
Yeah. So Ron, just going back to you, obviously you're a lecturer, you're mentoring students who want to get into this industry. How are you kind of finding that challenge for those students? Are they doing degrees and easily walking into roles, or are they still struggling to then find that opportunity even after they've got a degree? I know in the UK there is definitely a skills shortage, but there's always a question mark of, is it a skills shortage or is it an expectation shortage? What's your view on that?
And that's a great way to put it, Rosie, where we see the same here in the United States, where there seems to be hundreds of thousands of job openings. However, there's a lot of very skilled people who are having a hard time getting hired, both young folks out of college and then those who are career switching. People get attracted to cybersecurity because of the high salaries, at least here in the U.S., and the number of job openings, but not realizing it takes three things to get a job. It takes experience. You need some hands-on in the real world. You need some type of education associated with it, and then you need your certifications. And so often the certifications and training like CISSP or the offensive security, ethical hacking, the ones from ISACA, those sometimes get your foot in the door. So it's encouraging the students to get experience wherever you can get it. What I mean by that is you can actually pull in from other types of careers into cybersecurity. And you need to focus on whether you want to start with more of a technical, tactical, operational side, or more of a strategic and management side, the human factors, if you will. And many students don't realize that there are so many different types of jobs within cybersecurity. I don't know, are you familiar with, there's a website here in the United States called CyberSeek, and it's cyberseek.org, and they actually have a career pathway that shows many of the different types of jobs that are available, and it's not just within the United States. So it can help.
Yeah, I think I've come across that one. I think in the UK they're doing some work to kind of professionalise the cyber body and create standards, because you are right, there are so many different roles. And I suppose it can be off-putting for students or people who are thinking about cyber, that there is so many different opportunities out there.
And what's funny, so many, when they're just getting into it, they look at the sexy parts of it, the ethical hacking and the computer forensics. Just because that tends to draw them. It's like what's the TV show? There's numerous been TV shows, show different levels. And of course, they're not really getting in depth about it. But I also find some students who want to get into computer gaming. They realize that it's mostly story writing or coding. And the fun thing, so what I try to do with students as I'm mentoring them, and this is both high school students and college students, first of all, you need to make it very relevant to them. What does it mean to me? What's in it for me type of idea. How they can bring this into their own life, how they can use their own skills. How they can, and I recommend this to everybody, create your own home lab in cybersecurity. And you can do it very cheaply. You can find old computers, put Linux on it, learn how to use Linux. You can buy something like a Raspberry Pi or use virtualization like Oracle's VirtualBox or VMware to create your own virtual network on your own home PC practice. And that's a great way to get experience. It also makes it fun through CTFs, capture the flags, and different types of competitions in gaming.
So we tell people when we're recruiting for graduates, one of the key things we ask is, have you got a home lab? Have you done any CTFs? Have you got an account on Vulnhub? Are you really immersing yourself into the industry? So, Ken, you mentioned you've got to talk at B-side. So, it's not hard for students, if they're in a location where there is a B-side, to volunteer. And actually, by doing that and getting yourself out there, it's one of the best ways for you to, get involved in a community. In the UK, there's a lot of hack spaces as well, and there's regular meetups. I'm sure there is in the US as well, where you can go along and take your laptop and learn. And that's probably one of the best ways you can prove that, A, you've really got an interest for this, and B, make yourself stand out against all the other students that are applying. I think there's been a big push to get students into STEM subjects and into cyber, particularly girls as well. But it does mean that entry level of the market is quite saturated, and everybody's looking for, yes, okay, we want a student or a trainee, but how do we know that you're going to put the effort in, that you're doing these things and you're really interested and you're going to keep learning and you're doing those things to make yourself stand out front? So, Carolyn, I know you're a career retrainer. Can you talk to us about that and how you found that experience?
Yes, well, I'm a mechanical engineer by background, but a few years ago I did a foundation degree in computing. I've always had an interest in computing, but it was really through my children and an interest in Raspberry Pis, code clubs, and also the Cybersecurity Challenge that really helped me make my change, because of that interest, I'd got on some email lists, and I was thinking of changing career, but I wasn't really looking at cybersecurity. But I got an email saying, have you considered applying to the Cyber Retraining Academy? And this was a couple of years ago. And I thought, no, I've had my career. But the application process involves maths, and I love maths. And so these challenges really sort of piqued my interest. So I did them, and I got all the way through the application process, and then I suddenly realized I'd got this fantastic opportunity to do 8 weeks of training. I did 3 SANS courses, I got 2 certifications, and came out with the opportunity to change career. Now, that was the fun bit. The next bit was actually harder and took longer than I thought, actually finding a job. But the positive side of the industry is that everybody was very welcoming and friendly and willing to help me. So even though it took me quite a long time to get a job after my course, I did manage it, and I'm here now.
And what advice would you give to somebody then who was going through that retraining program?
I think firstly,
who was looking to do a career change.
Firstly, really believe that it can happen, because it's happened to me fairly late in my career. Make the most of all the online opportunities there are for training, Cybery, Hack the Box, etc. And then key for me was the networking. As you've already mentioned, there are so many opportunities in the industry to meet people, and I use them to meet people, find out what other courses I could do online, and sort of lastly, actually, about jobs and, were there opportunities that people knew in terms of jobs. But the main reason I did the networking was to meet people and build my community. And then the final bit is just keep going, because eventually something will fall into place and you should get a job.
If I can add something about networking, you don't have to be physically in the same location. You can use LinkedIn and Peerlist as a great opportunity to meet people worldwide. And that's actually why I'm very appreciative of Peerlist, because I've gotten to meet people fascinating who I'm learning so much from through that channel. And you need to be a little bit bold with it. You can't just be a lurker. It's okay to ask questions. So it's okay to show you're a little bit ignorant in something if you're honestly trying to learn. We have some fantastic people who love to help others get into this career field. So if you're new to it, it's okay to come into it and say, hey, I'm just learning. What advice do you give? And we have a lot of folks on Peerlist who are very happy to give some ideas.
I'd agree with that, because I had a few people just contact me, and I had sort of online calls with them, and they were helping me with who I should contact, what I should do next. And it really encouraged me to keep going. So I'd absolutely agree.
Yeah, Peerlist is a great resource, and there are all the wikis on there for people who are new to the industry. Okay, it's global, but actually the challenges that we have with a skills shortage and a technical shortage and learning how to break into things, that cyber is global. Those relationships can be global as well. So, okay, Ken, obviously you're a pioneer of the InfoSec industry. How have you seen that industry change over the years?
Well, one thing I'd like to address is this skills shortage. Personally, I feel that a lot of it's been self-imposed. If you look on LinkedIn and many other networking sites, there are a lot of good qualified people that have been looking for positions for over 3 months. And yet, because they don't meet the buzzwords that are being put in the automated systems, they're being overlooked. Experience often is not wanting to be paid for these days. I've actually seen some quote-unquote senior positions being paid less than, well, the actual number was $33,000, and they wanted a senior person to do it. And I mean, I'm sorry, but you could almost get that by working at a local big box retailer right out of school. Definitely not a senior position. We had that situation way back in the early days when people wanted a college degree, and quite frankly, there weren't any computer security degrees at the time, and we had just come out of the big iron age of big computers, and Novell and Windows were fighting for the network market, there were not degrees there. The big certifications at the time were CNE and MSCE, Certified Novell Engineer, and Microsoft Certified Expert or something similar.
Yeah.
The degrees and the certifications are constantly changing. So yes, it is important for people to get their certifications. Some people have an ethical dilemma where they actually wrote some of the questions for certifications. They've edited them and felt on a professional level it would be unfair to obtain that certification. Some people have gone and mentored people from the beginning. So I really do think that a lot of our vacancies are self-imposed.
Yeah.
As far as what I've seen, again, some of the stuff that we've seen back in the early days, the boot sector infectors, the worms, they're coming out as with new labels. The artificial intelligence, machine learning, rule-based, and whatnot. If people understand the history of where computer security has come from, they'll be a lot better equipped to understand where it's at currently and where it may be going in the future. While it's not a perfect one-for-one match, the one-offs are very easily factored in and quick to learn. One of the things I really love about the community, and it is a community, is the fact that from the beginning, most of the work was done across the line, and the running gag is no one knows you're a dog when you're on the other end of the keyboard. So if you were a dog, a cat, an alien from Mars, nobody knows what you look like, and nobody really cares. It's your skills. It's your knowledge base.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to learn and willing to share, you're more than welcome into the community. And people will go out of their way to help you pick up your skill gaps and assist you along your career.
You bring up a great point there, Ken. One of the things I like about teaching online, sorry, Carolyn, one of the things I love about teaching online is I don't know what my students look like. I don't often know their gender or anything about their background. So I'm able to focus on their skills and what they are and their character behind it. So there's something to be said for that. And that actually, I think, is a nice way to have more diversity into our career field. So I know that's something we've been looking at. How do we bring in all different types of people? Because we need those different types of people to be able to see the different types of threats and be able to address them.
Well, I think the diversity and bringing people in, I really don't know where that comes from, because even back in the early days, we've been more than welcoming to anybody, gender, race, religion. Everybody's been more than welcome. I think it may go back to some early biases where girls didn't take the maths and the STEM courses, and we've got to break down that. We've got to reach out, and I know a lot of colleagues that are doing that and making it so that STEM is cool regardless of who you are. And, you know, hey, it's a wonderful career field with wonderful people. And a lot more of our work and breakthroughs come through sitting around a table in a pub or cafe talking with your peers, even if they're from competing companies, than they are in the lecture halls.
Very true. So, Carolyn, what do you recommend for females? Because you have a great story. This is one of the things, I'm trying to get more young ladies involved. So I'm really curious tips on what we can do to get the diversity, and particularly young ladies, maybe a little more interested.
I think it's starting early because my experience was I was running a code club in a primary school, and for us that's sort of up to the age of 11. And the girls and the boys there sort of treated themselves equally. There was no division between girls do it better than boys or boys do it better than girls in terms of the way they were, whatever subject they were studying, with the exception perhaps of football, but that's irrelevant. But in terms of the code club, the boys and the girls would want to do different things, but they were equally skilled. And I really saw that was fantastic at that age. And I think it changes a little bit later when they go into their teens. And for me, we need to get the girls interested early, and so that and a way that they can keep their interest all the way through until they go to college.
I think in the UK there's some fantastic initiatives to get girls engaged. So we've got the Cyber First challenges with GCHQ and NCSE. I'm going to a 2-day STEM event at Sandhurst next week, which has got 1,000 schoolgirls on one day, and then the second day is mixed, so that there's opportunities for both. I think you're right, Carolyn. There needs to be those kind of showing that coding or cyber is welcome for girls from a young age to pique that interest, because you can't be what you can't see is one of the phrases that we kind of throw around. So if your parents are into technology, then as a child growing up, you will see that. But if we're not showing them there's different opportunities from that young age before they can make those even SATs choices or modules choices, then they're never going to be able to get into the tech industry or into the cyber industry. Because if they don't do IT or computer science at GCSE, they're not going to do it at A-level, so how are they going to get onto a degree course? What you said earlier on was interesting, in that there is lots of different routes into cyber. It's not just technical. There is psychology, and with Dr. Jessica Barker and people like that who are real role models for the human side of psychology, the human side of cybersecurity, it's showcasing that cyber is varied. It does touch us all in different ways. And if I can, didn't you, at B-Sides about that?
If I can throw something in, something that is lost, I guess, from current education. One of our earliest psychological profiles, if you would, was Dr. Sarah Gordon, female. She did 3 wonderful papers on the psychology of virus authors. So the psychology and the female have been there almost from the beginning, shall we say. So, but again, this is one of those things that people are not being introduced to this fact and shown the history of the industry. And if you're not shown that history, it's easy to forget where we came from and some of the early pioneers as well.
That's what always cracks me up. People will say, "Oh, you're in cyber? Wow, it must be always new." And it's like, again, we have a long history, over 50 years. And I agree, Ken, we sometimes forget that history. It's important to remember. This way we can not have to keep relearning the same things over and over again. We're still talking about ransomware and phishing, a dozen years later. You would think we'd have a lot of these solved by now, but we still, the more we do, the more we have to do, it seems. One quick plug for anyone who has a cybersecurity certification. Most certification bodies like ISC Squared and ISACA do allow mentoring to count towards CPEs. So if you're wondering, how do I build my CPEs annually? Going into schools, helping kids, because I found by teaching and working with the kids, I learn just as much as they do, and helps me remember and keep all my skills very sharp.
That's a great point, and I know there is a big push at the moment to give back to industry and showcase that. So that's a really good way to encourage people to do that. When we've been speaking to people about STEM events and different things that we're organising, there's a lot of passion there for people to do that and to give back to the community. And with the B-Sides and things like that, I know for anyone who's new to the industry, it's worth volunteering. Even if you're studying, I know in the UK with the different B-sides, a lot of students who run the courses come and help out with the events, and it helps them to really get involved in a community. Would you, just conscious of timing, can we go through with each person if they would have a tip for anybody who's entering this industry or who wants to learn more or who wants to find that first role? Ron, shall we go to you first?
Certainly. ABC, always be curious. Always be learning. I tell the students, and this depresses them, homework begins after you graduate. We're always studying, learning, reading. The articles on Peerlist, I could spend all day and I'm learning something new. So be curious and ask questions. And don't be shy about asking questions. You're just part of your learning journey, and we understand that. So reach out, always be curious.
Thank you, Ron. What about you, Carolyn?
For me, it's networking. That was the absolute key for me finding a role, but also enjoying finding a role, because actually the networking was fun. So networking for me is absolutely key.
And Ken, for you?
I would say find a niche in cybersecurity that you enjoy doing, something you have fun doing. That way, when you're learning something new, it's not a chore. That way, it's not, oh, I got to drag myself in and stare at a screen all day. Find something you enjoy doing, something that challenges you and helps you to grow, and then reach out to people in the field. I've yet to meet somebody that isn't willing to share their experience, knowledge, and mentor new people in the field.
Perfect. That's really helpful. Thank you all so much for your time. I'm conscious that it is late. Oh, no, it's early in the US, isn't it? It's coming towards the end of the day here in the UK. But thank you once again to Carolyn, Ken, and Ron. If there's any more questions or anything else anybody would like to say, I think we'll sign off there.
Very good. If anyone has questions, post them on Peerlist.
Yes. Thank you again. Thanks for your time.